if Namita and I finish a couple minutes early, I think that you should finish the breakout rooms that many minutes early also to give more time at the tail end, rather than running the breakout room all the way to the time you were going to have it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That makes sense? Sometimes I don't make sense.
So Heather, if Namita and Dave wrap and want to head into the breakout rooms a little bit early, we'll just compensate.
Yeah.
The breakout rooms will remain that number of minutes long, and then we'll have a little bit more time at the end to pitch these questions back, which is a good idea.
Thank you, Renee.
Sorry, guys. One other quick issue. I just got the reminder email, and it said at 12:47 that the conversation will begin in 1 hour.
Oh, it just came through?
Yeah.
Ooh, and I sent that right at noon.
Yeah, I got it too. Just and it did confuse me a little bit.
That's weird.
Ruh-roh. What do we want to do?
Well, it seems like if it took 45 minutes to go out, it may be more confusing to send again if it comes out again mid-webinar,
Yeah.
but it is confusing to get it.
Is there
In the email, it'll begin at 1 p.m. today. So maybe they'll just,
Yeah.
if it's on their calendar and it's in there, it works, but.
I can, is there a registration list somewhere with just people's emails listed, or is it?
I'll share it with you.
I could work on an email, like just a regular Gmail, not through Razor's Edge, see if it would go quicker.
I just shared the registration list with you.
Is that something that you know, Renee, Heather, Zan, is that something you want me to do? Or leave it?
Worth a shot.
I don't know.
I would send something out.
Okay. I'm okay with it. I think, yeah, Erica, if you can come up with something that's like super short and beginning at 1 p.m. or something, just so that's in the title of the email.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Zan,
can I bug in on one other quick question? In my remarks, the stuff that was added that was Lynn's, I think, we're not listing the amount of the grant. We're just saying we got a grant.
I think you can say nearly $1 million. I think the actual amount.
I was just wondering if we could say that because it's significant, right? I mean, it's not a $10,000 grant. It's nearly $1 million. So.
Yeah.
So
do you want to add that in? I think that works.
Okay. I'll add that in.
Thank you.
Sarah, it caught my money dance. We used to do that at Blaffer Gallery. We do, remember the gopher and Caddyshack? That was our dance.
I've been doing the money dance for many, many years now.
Okay, folks, I am going to start screen sharing with music, and then Renee, I'll text you in the background when to start admitting folks.
Okay.
Okay.
I can do the paper, this thing right here. Instruction here too.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jay Roberts, Vice President for Academic Affairs at Warren Wilson College, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's deep dive conversation about the Craftscape at Warren Wilson College. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. This is part of our Blue Ocean series, where we gather together to imagine what is possible and actively collaborate on new ideas and visions for Warren Wilson. Blue Ocean Strategy is a concept from the Harvard Business School, and we kicked off the Warren Wilson version of it on February 28th, 2020, appropriately on Leap Day, just before the pandemic hit. But even with the challenges of the past year and a half, we have continued our work to think creatively and strategically in areas that are or could be distinctive for Warren Wilson College. Of the many unique and special qualities of this college, there are two that stand out in terms of their importance to our history, to this place and region, and most importantly, to our students. These are what we have begun to describe as the craftscape and the landscape. Dave Ellum and Namita Wiggers, who are with us today, will be introducing and discussing these concepts later. But for now, I just wanted to briefly touch on one element of how the craftscape and the landscape come together at Warren Wilson, and that is through our mission and our most important element, the student experience. As a national leader in experiential learning, we often talk about the fact that learning happens everywhere at Warren Wilson, in the classroom and the laboratory, on work crews, in the local community through service learning, and on the athletic fields. Hello and welcome. Did none of that first part come through for folks?
You're good.
Renee, did I get muted, or did all of it not happen in terms of the introduction?
We heard you. You can keep going from where you're at.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, apologies, everyone. We are all still learning through this process. All right, let me find where I was here. Excuse me. So in the development and integration of our craftscape and landscape that you'll hear more about today, we will enable our faculty and staff to amplify experiential learning for our students in this place and in this space through new projects and research opportunities, a growing number of internships, and enhanced community partnerships. And in support of this distinctive experiential work, I'm excited today to announce a new grant of nearly $1 million from the Wingate Foundation. Wingate has been an integral partner in helping Warren Wilson establish its undergraduate minor in craft, its Master of Arts in Critical Craft Studies, and fostering our partnership with the Center for Craft in Asheville. And we are absolutely thrilled with the receipt of this new grant. It's going to enhance Warren Wilson's educational opportunities, support our faculty and our facilities, attracting students and advancing the field of craft. We're grateful to the foundation and its leadership for this growing partnership that will help position Warren Wilson College as a national leader in liberal arts craft education. And importantly, this expansion is the direct result of the vision and leadership of Dave and Namita, as well as the leaders and faculty in our art department who will be facilitating breakout rooms later in the program. So again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Apologies for the small hiccups in our introduction. And I'd like to introduce Renee to take us further in our meeting today. Renee?
Well done, Jay. Well, way to roll with it. I'm Renee Danger James. I'm the Director of Development here at Warren Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us today for Craftscape, a conversation with Dave Ellum and Namita Wiggers, exploring the relationship between land and craft. I'm here to help guide us through today's program and would like to cover just a couple of quick housekeeping items. At the end of today's program, I will announce one very lucky winner of our craft gift basket giveaway. This basket includes objects and products made by our undergraduate and graduate students. It includes the inaugural publication of the master's program, Mapping Craft, and its second publication, which will be available in June. a spalted maple wood-turned plate from our woodworking program, hand-woven linen table runner made from our own homegrown flax, and a hand-woven basket from our fiber arts program, an herb chopper repurposed, made from repurposed automobile leaf springs from our blacksmithing program, and a very special selection of original products from our farm and herb garden programs. It's a wonderful gift basket. You need only to be in attendance today to be included in this giveaway, so stay with us in order to claim your prize. I also will share more details at the end of the program about how you can continue to be involved in the Craftscape at Warren Wilson. At about 1:30, we will transition from the conversation into smaller breakout rooms. This is our opportunity to hear from you. Each room will be facilitated by a faculty, staff, and alumni host. Please remain muted until you wish to speak during those breakout room sessions later, but we do invite you to keep your video on during the entire program. Now, our speakers today, both extraordinary colleagues and inspiration to work with, bring their passion and significant experience in their respective fields to the work of visioning and creating the Warren Wilson College Craftscape. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce the Director of the MA in Critical Craft Studies, Namita Gupta-Wiggers, and our Dean of Land Resources, Dave Elam.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to kick us off, and I would just want to say that Dave and I love having conversations. So we have set a timer to help us because we could go for hours about this conversation, and we've had hours of conversation about it already. It's a really exciting topic. It's exciting synergy. So what we thought we'd start out with is a bit of a description about what people think of when they hear what we work on. And I work on craft. And so when people ask me what I work on, usually they'll think that I'm, they're wondering, what medium do you work in? And I have to explain that I'm a historian and a theorist and a curator, which is a very different way of understanding craft. It's not about the making per se, although I have that in my background. It's really about understanding how finished work and objects and people circulate through the world. It's really about, what I do is really about situating craft. I ask a lot of questions. Since I've been at this program, I ask, which craft do you want to work on? Which changes the question away from craft as a category of objects to actually open up a space for people to think about lots of different kinds of craft. So that's the kind of work that I've been doing since I joined the college in 2017, especially. I also think a lot about ways that I can teach people to draw from art history, but also draw from other disciplines and other ways of thinking about making, so that we understand that craft is not just about one kind of thing. It's actually a much bigger subject area and potentially a field of study in and of itself. So those are some of the ways that I am kind of shifting and changing. It's not the elevator speech, is it, Dave?
It never is.
It's a little longer.
Building.
So Dave, how about you? What do people expect when you tell them what you do? And how do you describe what you do?
It's actually funny. I'm actually a silviculturist, but it's far easier for me to tell people that I'm a forester. So, I get a couple different responses. When I tell people I'm a forester, quite often one of the first things people think of is trees and chainsaws. And, that's part of forestry, but it's only a very small part of forestry, and it's not something that I spend a lot of time on, and it's not something that's really my passion. A lot of other people will think, you work for the national parks, you work for national forests, wildlife agencies, and land management, that type of thing. Some people are actually brave enough to say, what does a forester actually do? And that's the best response that I enjoy. In its simplest form, forestry, and more specifically silviculture, is defined as the art and science of growing trees and forests to provide the goods and services desired by society. Yes, that will be on the exam at the end of this. I make sure my students remember that. What this collaboration with Namita, it hasn't really changed what I do, but it's really changed how I think about what I do. I've never considered myself really a crafts person. I think I have one of my former students on this call that can tell you right up front, I can barely even draw a tree. I have two trees. I have pine trees and oak trees, and they pretty much look alike. I've been doing this for a long time. But what working with Namita has taught me in the Craftscape, it's really changed my thinking. And now I realize that what I'm doing is actually crafting ecosystems. I can take forests and I can guide them towards what they can be. That can be improved wildlife habitat, that could be greater economic value. I can increase biodiversity on that site. And with that mindset, what I'm really doing is elevating the art side of it and putting it right up there with the science part of it, which is important because I think too often we rely on data and reduce down to just data. So while I'm doing this and relying on my experiences and my intuition, I also need to remember that I have to work within the biological constraints of the forest ecosystem I'm crafting. And this is really, really analogous to the craftsperson working within the physical constraints of the medium that they are working with. And all the time, some people might think, "Hey, Dave, you're playing God here," and really thinking that you can craft and guide an ecosystem. And what it's really important for you to remember is while I can increase some of these human values, I can never increase the intrinsic value of the ecosystem that I'm working with. So that's a little bit about how thinking in craft thought has changed my thinking. So Namita, how has working with a dirt forester influenced you?
Well, your impact came into my sphere before I even knew who you were. And it was actually on the day I interviewed for this job, and I was in the fiber workshop with Melanie and met a student named Kat who was doing this amazing project where she had woven textiles and dyed them with Japanese knotwood. So it combined all these different ways of pulling together information and knowledge. And she could talk to me about the weaving, she could talk to me about the dyeing, how it worked, but she could also tell me about the chemical principles behind why it was working the way it was, and the reason that knotwood was a good choice because it is an invasive species. And it also happened to be the day that Lynn Morton was announced as the president, and it gave me this feeling of this being a campus where there could be this possibility to think about things differently. But it was after I met you and we started talking, and you were telling me about how you look at a forest, and you described that you don't just look at what is happening right this minute. You're looking at the forest and reading it through what you see as evidence of things that have happened in the last 100 years, and thinking about the impact of what you are doing going forward into the next 100 years. And I like to say craft is long, and that description of how you engage the forest as a living, changing environment really gave me a lot of pause to think about a different way to talk about craft, so that we can think about craft as being part of living, changing systems also in a different sort of way. And even from the first moment when you talk to our grad students, and Sarah Kelly, one of our alumni, is here, walking around and talking with you about the river cane on the campus and the difference between river cane and bamboo, gave us a chance to understand the materials, so that when we went out to Cherokee and met with basket makers who work with the material, our graduate students had a really different understanding of the connection between craft and nature and the materiality of what is being used to be transformed. And that was radical for me. It changed how I could talk about history in a different sort of way. And up until now, most of the work that I've been doing has been in art colleges or in art departments in public universities. And Warren Wilson is the first place where I could see this conversation taking place, from the seed in the ground to the systems through which objects move, and the way culture gets created by our ways of making and our traditions and meanings we associate with objects. And so it's a really unique place to be. And it makes me wonder, Dave, like, what is it for you to be teaching at this kind of an institution and doing what you're doing here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm a bit of an odd duck in many ways. For this conversation, I'm going to keep it to the professional. There were three things that brought me to Warren Wilson from a large R1 university. The first one was the land. The land was so important to me. I came from a university where we had 12,000 acres of forest land, but the closest piece of forest land was 70 miles from campus. So we couldn't just use it as an everyday classroom. And so the land, understanding that the campus is integrated and integral to the fabric of the land, was really important to me. The other thing that really spoke to me was the experiential learning. I'm the type of person that has to have context if I'm going to learn something. And quite often I had professors in college that didn't contextualize the learning, so it wouldn't stick with me. So I was really turned on about the experiential learning. And then finally was the students. When I met our students and realized, by golly, we attract people that are going to save the world, and my job is just to get the heck out of their way. I could digress for a second. One of my favorite stories about our students, I got a call from a person who I'd sent a student to work with, a licensed forester, and he said, "Man, you got to send me some more students." I said, "Why? What's going on?" I knew how I had sent. And that person said, "Your students show up, and I spend an hour telling them about what needs to get done, what we're going to do that day, how we're going to do things. And the first and only question the student asked was, okay, where's the keys to the truck? Not how do I do this? How long do you want it to take? Oh, I'm not sure. It's just, I got this. Just let me do this." And I'm in an odd place here. Teaching a discipline like forestry at a liberal arts college is unique. There's not a lot of us that teach forestry at a liberal arts college. Forestry is generally the purview of R1 universities. And in that setting, I'd be the forestry professor, and I'd be focusing solely on the how to do forestry. And I'll tell you right now, the how to do forestry is the easy part. I could teach that to anyone. What I get to do at Warren Wilson College is really focus on why we need good forestry, why forestry is important to the world. The why is the exciting part for me. So that's what I get to do at Warren Wilson College. And, when you take the why and you combine it with a 100-year mindset, it creates these wonderful synergies with craft. And we get to think about societal issues, economic issues, resource and material production. And what this does is put purpose front and center along with action.
David also does something really interesting too. Thinking about what you were saying about context, the way that craft in academia, and I use that in quotes because I'm talking about it in a really, just in that specific environment of writing and textbooks and things like that, and museums and those kinds of spaces. There's this way that the 19th and 20th centuries have been dominated by this talk about the hand versus the industrial revolution versus the factory, the hand versus the machine, the hand versus technology. And what you are bringing up is a way of shifting that conversation, where we can also understand that the materials and the people and the lives are from a place. It is from an actual place with connected to actual materials and nature and systems. And I think one of the exciting things is that working here and working with you opens up this other way of understanding that we have to have new ways of talking about craft, not to give up the old ways, but that we need to make space for more conversations And that place where that conversation needs to go is to understand how craft is part of consumption on our planet. And how consumption of the resources is a major issue that we are facing. And so it's not just to think about how craft objects are made or how it's transforming nature or that they're social objects, but also understanding that craft is part of what we need to think about in order to survive in the 21st century. And this opens up a really unique place for Warren Wilson to pick up that conversation. Honestly, I don't think there's another place where I know that you can have that conversation in the kind of material and experiential way that we can on our campus.
Nice. So I know we still have 2 hours, so I'm going to ask this question. So what is the Craftscape to you, Namita?
So when I started using this word, it was drawn a lot on the thinking of an anthropologist named Arjun Appadurai. And some of you may know Arjun's work through, he wrote a book about the social life of things. And this was a way of understanding how objects move through the world and saying, you know, they're not just commodities, they're actually connected to a lot of other ways that we make our lives, that we make our cultures, the way we build nations and things like that. And Arjun talks a lot about the scape model in a different essay. And it's a way of understanding how to talk about things that doesn't hierarchize. And with craft, there tends to be this hierarchy where art is above craft, design is somewhere in here, they want to be up here, but I think we are everywhere. And we're everywhere, and we can talk about craft as part of these systems because craft gives a chance to talk about ethnoscapes and the way that people move and live in the world and build cultures. Financescapes, the way that economies are structured and work. A book like Empire of Cotton is a great example of putting all of this into action. Ideascapes, how does it shape why we think we need to do what we do and what ideas matter to us? Mediascapes, the way we tell our stories, the way we convey information, and technoscapes. I mean, a spinning wheel is technology, and it's as much as our iPhones here are technology too, it has an impact on us. So for me, the Craftscape is about creating a platform that allows people to talk about craft in these different systemic ways without hierarchizing one particular cultural perspective over another, and to really create more of that kind of a lateral platform. I'm excited too, because it also means that it gives space for connecting local and global conversations. And on our campus, Matt Haw, who is an alum of our program, is our blacksmithing crew supervisor. And Ben Blackmar, who is our fine woodworking crew supervisor, is an incoming student in the graduate program. So the Craftscape on the campus is going to literally connect all the things that you were talking about with all the things that we have been working on in the graduate program, and offer this opportunity to really expand this idea of systems. But I think you think about Craftscape a little differently, which I think is so exciting, that it can be an idea that has a lot of ways. And as long as somebody can say, this is what it is to me, it becomes a way to understand craft is bigger. But what does Craftscape mean to you?
Yeah, Craftscape has really affected me on 2 levels. On a personal level, just working with Namita on this it's greatly expanded my thinking, right? It's been wonderful for me. And it's another great thing about Warren Wilson College. We're not in our little silos. I've been able to really expand my thinking and broaden my thinking. And I'm hopeful that if we can do that for the students, which I think we will, then my personal passion and my personal goals as a professor will be met through the Craftscape by empowering students that way. When I think about what the Craftscape is from a professional point of view and from the college's point of view, I see it as a perfect vehicle for bringing together several strengths of the college. Respect for the environment, purposeful action, and meaningful experiences. and we can bring those things to bear on the student's education. It's a one-of-a-kind opportunity to bring together land management and craft learning through the production and use of raw materials, the creativity of making, and also the sharing of cultural histories. You know, in a nutshell, for me, the Craftscape wholly embodies the Warren Wilson experience. And that's why I'm really, really excited to be moving forward with this with Namita and Jay and the Environmental Studies Department, the land managers, the craft managers. We're going to kill this thing, and people are going to be replicating our model down the road. You watch. With that, I'm going to send you back to the hosts with one little caveat for you. Namita and I are not going to be in the breakout rooms. So we really wanted to have some questions posed to us candidly. So make us work. Make us work. Come up with some great questions that we can discuss on the way back. See you in a few minutes. You and me. Not yet.
Not yet. Almost. I love watching everybody go out and then come back in. It's kind of cool.
I had to get a darn cold right before I take off.
Oh no. Oh, Dave, get some vitamin C packets.
Well, I've been eating emergency like left and right. It's just a cold. My daughter had it last week.
Well, bring some.
We have some folks who are not joining a breakout room. So I just wanted to let you know that too, that some are hanging out here. Okay.
Cool. Thanks for the heads up, Heather. Appreciate
You're welcome.
it. Dave, with you coming up to Portland, keep in mind it's spring. So you definitely should bring, if you have allergies, bring some stuff with you.
Yeah, I'm lucky I don't.
Oh, good, good, good.
I am so excited to get out there.
I loved seeing the photographs. Heather, the slideshow looked terrific.
Great. Great. Glad that went well.
Yeah, I cannot wait till we can be back on campus.
I
Really
know.
can't wait.
I know. Definitely. Making sure I'm going to be in the background here. I'm just going to be making sure everybody makes it in their rooms. So have a little bit of movement too.
Great.
I convinced my son it wasn't a good idea for me to ski before doing a week of backpacking with the elevation we're doing when I haven't skied in 30 years.
Oh, yeah. Hello, maybe not. Yeah. Yeah. So text me and let me know what your plans are for tomorrow. Unfortunately, I've got something I'm teaching. Well, unfortunately, I can't meet you, but I am teaching. We're doing that rethink tank on developing anti-racist curriculum tomorrow. So I've got that during the same time because I'm on where we scheduled it on East Coast time, so it moves it up for me.
Yeah, well, I'll see about the back end then.
Cool. Perfect.
Yeah, I just figured I have to get a bunch of stuff at REI, so I'm going to drop him at Mount Hood and then shoot back to Portland, pick up supplies, and go get them, and then we're going to head down.
Are you renting a car? Yeah.
I rented a Jeep with a removable roof.
So the REI That will be awesome. The
Co-
REI here is great. It's got a parking lot right there, so you won't have any trouble going in. And they're just great. They're
Good.
just great.
Yeah, after we get out of the wilderness area, it's going to be me and Towns driving the coast highway in a Jeep with the roof off for 3 days.
It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you're going to the Redwoods, right?
We're going to Marble Mountain Wilderness. It's just, do you know Eureka or Yreka? It's
Yeah.
just over the border, but then we're gonna jump down to Fern Canyon
Good.
and then
Good.
drive up from there, up through Redwoods, through the coast highway. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry to
Perfect.
those
We've
of you
gone
who
to
are.
those.
I was just going to apologize to those who are listening to my rambling about my vacation.
Those redwoods out at Crescent, I think it's Crescent City or Ocean City. Now I can't remember what it's called. We've been there twice. They're really wonderful, and we've ended up going in March both times when it's pretty quiet because it's still kind of raining. I mean, it's raining today, but you feel like you've got the trees to yourself. It's really amazing. It's beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And then there's a couple of places around there, depending on your time. And if you research a little ahead of time, you can see different kinds of redwoods too, right in that area, like the coastal ones versus the ones that are more interior. Yeah.
Yeah, and Towns has never seen redwoods, so this will be awesome for him.
It's amazing.
I'm going to sneak out and get a glass of water.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in here to say for the folks who just joined, we're working on getting you assigned to a breakout room. We do have most folks in breakout rooms right now, so we will have you in there shortly.
Hi, Erica. I just got the last one that joined, invited to a room. So we should be set on that end. And others, there are just some others who didn't necessarily want to join a breakout room. So they're hanging out here. Hello, it looks like we have somebody joining us by phone. Right now during, we've just heard a conversation with Namita and Dave, and we have people that are in small breakout rooms of up to 10 people. If you would like to join, or you can just stay here. We'll be returning back to the main room with Dave and Namita to answer questions around 1:50 p.m. Eastern time, if you'd like to just hang out.
For those of you who are hanging out here, I'll let you know a secret that there's an article coming out in American Craft Magazine next month about the Craftscape that has a really nice coverage of Wilson, but then also a bit of an expanded conversation with other people. And I've seen the proofs, and it's going to be a really good article. So definitely think about going out and getting a copy of American Craft next month. Dave, we kept it within time.
We did. That was amazing. I think we ended like 2 minutes early.
I know, right? It's amazing.
Amazing. It was just a taste.
And a moose bouche.
There you go. This is a fun format, doing a conversation rather than a presentation.
Yeah, I'm super glad we did this. And I'm really excited to hear what people, I wish I could listen in to just to hear the conversations and understand what people are asking and talking about. But hopefully we can continue the conversation when everybody comes back. But yeah, I mean, we touched on a lot of key points and opened up, I think, some good space for discussion. So yeah.
Hey, do you want to review the video I'm submitting to Symposium before, or are you cool?
No, I think it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be fabulous.
Pete said it came out well.
Awesome. I mean, from the things you shared, I can see such great synergy with the things that that Emily Johnson's thinking about. And I just got one of the other people who's speaking about land. I just got her book. It's called Walking Detroit. And so basically, this was her MFA thesis. And so she walks through different places, and she goes along what were formerly indigenous trails and maps how those are changing in the city environment. And she does a whole lot of research. So she contextualizes what's going on and how those streets have shifted and changed. And she walks through wearing a modified hanbok, Korean hanbok, made of denim. So it pulls together her Korean and her US identities. And then she walks through and documents herself in the different places. And I just wrote an article for Crafts UK and talked with her a little bit more about her work. So I think it'll be a nice tie-in with what you're doing. And then Emily Johnson, who I believe is UPIC, is the choreographer. And she's the one who years ago I met her, and we had this super intense conversation where she was talking about how she physically feels a thread connecting her through the ground to her ancestral homeland. And it really made me start thinking about this question of how do we understand where our feet hit the ground? You know, whether your feet hit the ground in lots of places all the time, or is it just one place or a few key places? Like, what is that? What is that connection, and how do we understand it? And I mean, as a dancer and a choreographer, it takes it into this different kind of physical realm. She's really fascinating. I think you're going to really enjoy talking with both of them.
Yeah, it also brings up the question of what actually gets in the way of your feet physically touching the ground.
Yes, completely.
That's why most of us don't have the thread connecting, because we never touch the ground with our feet anymore.
So true. It's so true. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. There's these essays about phenomenology and Merleau-Ponty and some people who talk about, you know, this distance when you're up high in a high rise and you're looking down on the landscape. It's this perspective. But you're also pointing out that it's not just that's a power relationship. It's also the fact that we were walking on concrete and asphalt and not on the ground that makes the difference too. Yeah, I agree.
So are those the other two people that are going to be on the panel with me?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
And we haven't talked. Sorry?
I said that'll be fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I think it's going to be a great conversation. I don't know how we're moderating it yet. I'm kind of thinking that might be one I want to take on, just to keep the conversation going.
One that you'll take on?
Maybe. Maybe, yeah, because it's something I want to think about it and a little bit. But someone will, if it's not me, somebody else will.
I don't
maybe
do a lot of
Tiffany, Norman.
panels. The panel format is something I don't have a lot of experience with. I do them every now and again, but so that'll be fun for me.
Cool.
Last one I did was in Mexico with indigenous woman from Puebla and a state land manager. The three of us were talking, so it's kind of interesting.
What was it about?
It was mostly about how ecosystems change over time. So they wanted to bring in my perspective as a U.S. forester, a land manager from Mexico, and then the indigenous perspective. So it was fun.
Nice.
It was pretty early in my career here at Warren Wilson. So yeah, it was good.
Cool. It's a good combination.
All right, they should be wrapping.
They should be, yeah, soon. I do a lot of panels, but I'm trying really hard when people ask me to moderate, I'm trying really hard to find ways to make it more conversational rather than ask a question and then you go down the line and everybody has to answer. I just find that to be really dull. You've got these amazing people on stage, right? And then they have to answer a question. And so I'd rather have it be sort of throw out a question and have a conversation and then be able to have it go where it's going to go. But you've got sort of the scope of what you think you want talked about. And so you kind of come in and ask a few questions and pokes and prods and get it to kind of shape itself. But I mean, when you're bringing all these people together, it just seems like you do everyone a disservice if you don't let them just speak, at some point.
It's funny, you just described my teaching method. When I walk into a classroom, I know what topic I'm talking about, but I don't use notes and I have no idea how I'm going to cover it until I start talking. And it's always different. I always cover it. You have to cover the material, but until I start talking, I have no idea how exactly I'm going to cover it. And I think that opens it up.
Rita and Dave, we're going to have people return in 1 minute.
1 minute.
Okay.
And everyone coming back. I'm seeing lots of smiles. That's great.
Dave, I want you to know that everyone took your challenge very seriously of
no.
making you work for it.
That's good. What I didn't say was the format is Namita's going to answer all the questions.
Oh, thanks. We didn't plan that part.
I believe we're all back now. And I'm gonna pitch a question from one of our breakout rooms. It actually overlaps with a couple of breakout rooms, which I anticipated would be the case. There's a question about how ingenuity becomes part of that craftscape. And I want to marry that with the other question about entrepreneurship, which we talk a lot about on our campus and have a new program. So how does entrepreneurship and ingenuity?
You want to start, Namita, or do you want me to?
Why don't you go ahead?
entrepreneurship is huge for us here at the college, and it's going to be huge in the Craftscape. You know, I always go back to the Ben Franklin quote. I work this with students, doing well by doing good for yourself. And, you know, one of the funny things I ask students all the time is, hey, how many of you want to become a millionaire? And the young ones say, what is wrong with this guy? Get out of here. This guy's crazy. That's not what we're about. I can tell you that once they become seniors, they want that letter and they want to get that great job. So entrepreneurship for me is really about what, you know, the things that we can do on the land through craft that actually bring value to the world and bring value to the college and bring value to the individual. And working with the new business person, the new entrepreneurship person will be doing that. A couple examples, the big one for me is waste streams, and this gets into ingenuity. We need to stop talking about waste streams. We need to start talking about converting byproducts into usable things, right? And I think land and craft has a big place in that. One of the things, and again, this gets to ingenuity, one of the things that we're looking at is there's a big resurgence now in bone china. Who would have known there's a resurgence in bone china? And you can't really use the cow bones from stockyards because they're not strong enough because the animals haven't moved. So what about repurposing the byproducts, the bones from our farm, into saleable products that can be used for things like bone china? And then we can develop students who are entrepreneurs who down the road can learn business skills and contribute back to the college through capacity. So that's my take on it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a different place for the conversation. That's less, I think, that's less practically applicable in that very like material way that you're talking about, Dave. But for me, when I hear the word ingenuity, I always think about ingenuity as problem solving. It's about understanding how to work things out. And that's at the core what I think we are teaching through the other parts of the Craftscape that happen on the campus, and thinking about how do you address the problem of researching a craftsperson who's had no documentation on them? How do you understand how to tell the histories? One of our alums, Mike Hatch, has a grant right now to work on Black craftspeople who were working on glass in North Carolina, in Western North Carolina. There's not a lot of documentation. How do you figure out how to work in the archives and problem solve so that you can get the stories out? That's what the work is in terms of ingenuity on the history making side. I think that it also makes me think about indigenuity, which is a term that an artist named Yor Nongo introduced me to. It's something that that he talks a lot about the kind of thing where you just kind of make do with what's around, and you make sort of what many of us might look at and say, that's a really janky kind of weird solution for something. But it works, and it works because it solves a problem. And that's something that we are trying to do in our program, is to teach people how to do that. In terms of entrepreneurship, I mean, I think risk is a really important part of entrepreneurship. Understanding planning and understanding what the risks are through that planning. And there is risk taking in trying to build a new field of craft studies because it's not been done. It doesn't sit neatly in any particular discipline, which makes it a really exciting entrepreneurial endeavor in terms of ideas and understanding the why that you brought up, Dave, in the how and the why. I mean, this is about the why. So I feel like our graduate students are entrepreneurs in a different sort of way, in that they are looking for ways to shape a new field of study. And that's where I see other aspects of entrepreneurship coming out too.
We have a second question that I want to share really quickly before I announce the winner of our beautiful gift basket. To what extent do you think that we could create a new supply streams for materials and change the future of environmental use of materials? There will no doubt be great potential there and also limitation. So what are your thoughts?
You want to go first on this one, Amita, and then I'll follow up?
Oh, yeah, this one's a hard one for me to answer because the work I do is more the work I do at Wilson and my role in as an educator is really not necessarily about developing those streams as much as about understanding the impact of those streams and the questions and the connections to people's needs and how it impacts bigger, taking it from the specificity to understand how it operates in those systems. So for me, I would say what's exciting about being at Wilson is the opportunity to actually think about it from that inception of a material through those systems, and to really have it be contextualized and have this, to have it be part of an experiential learning model is really different than just reading about it after the fact in a book and trying to understand what happened. You are at the place where there is this kind of thinking that can happen in a very tangible material way. So it changes how you can write about it and understand it later. And I think that's something that we can do at Wilson that's pretty unique. But I think, Dave, you probably will answer it more on the, maybe on the how and the why in a different sort of way.
Yeah, you really, I want to thank whoever brought up that question. You've really hit the nail on the head on one of the key components of the Craftscape for me. And what I mean by that is the combination of our lands and the theory of craft. It's going to, moving forward, it's going to be all about reducing waste streams. It's going to be, everything is a product. There isn't product and there isn't waste. There's products that can be used for different purposes. And let me give you a couple examples of some of the connections we've made across those cycles and across those circular economies. Again, bringing back to entrepreneurship and ingenuity, one of the really important things we're doing is combining craft and environmental studies, right, through land. We just had a student who did her undergraduate research thesis on repurposing spent hemp as a dye producing product. Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was asking a question. Somebody needs to be muted. So we're looking at using the hemp that we grow on the property and what would typically be thrown away as a waste product after the process of extracting the oils would go to a landfill. But she researched the possibility of using that and extracting dyes from it and making a natural dye out of a quote unquote waste product. That is where I really think we need to go and where we have great opportunities here at the school to not only produce raw materials such as a native clay that we have, the wood, the sheep that we shear, but also the environmental studies department, the physics department, and the biology department to look at byproducts of other processes and put them into the craft stream. I know Melanie Wilder is here. Melanie has started working with an outfitter that produces tents and quote unquote glamping materials. I still have a hard time saying glamping, but what they are looking at using some of our remnants and some of the things that we can dye to add accents to some of their higher end camping gear that they do. So I think that's, again, I think that the reuse of materials and the recycling of materials and circular economies are a huge in for us. And again, it'll be a unique component of the Craftscape for Warren Wilson.
And, Dave, can I just add to that? This is also very much about, very much connected to contemporary art and contemporary art making right now, too. In fact, there are programs at a college, some colleges like USC, I think it is, who are developing these programs that are connecting, conceptual critical approaches to art making with thinking about the land, and they're not doing it with the kind of attentiveness to the land itself that we are doing. What they're doing is great, and I don't mean to say that what they're doing is not good. It's just different. We can do it differently here. But this question about sustainability and repair and waste, these are all parts of the conversations that are happening in contemporary art also. And our faculty in the art department and art history are definitely bringing those into conversations too. So we can move on both that idea sphere kind of thing and in the kind of the technoscape sphere that you're talking about too, Dave.
I'm going to jump in, and I want to announce the winner of our gift basket today. And we will formally end the program in a few minutes, but if you want to hang in there, we've got a number of wonderful questions for Namita and Dave, and we'll carry on for a few minutes. But right now, Joy Charlton, can you speak up and say hello? You are the grand winner of this beautiful gift basket. I will reach out. Hi, Joy.
Hey.
Yay! I will reach out and coordinate dropping that off for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was hoping I would win.
You won! Yay!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Our pleasure. We also want to encourage you, if you're interested in connecting with us and to come to visit Warren Wilson to see how we demonstrate that craftscape, please reach out to my colleague, Heather Wingert. Heather Wingert. She is our Director of Community Relations. You'll see her email there in the chat box. And we are very excited to be able to see you in person and start scheduling tours again this fall. So we will officially close the program now, but please, if you wish, you can stay here, and I'm going to pitch one more question to Dave and Namita. We had a question about community members participating in our campus craftscape. Beyond these tours, whether through conversation or use of our facilities and shops and studios, how they can become more engaged. Are we thinking about those aspects?
We are, and I can tell you right now, one of the things that we're trying to, that we're really looking at is outreach and making our facilities available for workshops, outreach opportunities, especially during the summer. So I want to reiterate what Renee brought up. Anytime anybody wants to come to campus and look at what we're doing, I love giving tours. So do that. And then we hope in the next year or so that we'll actually have hands-on experiential workshops for the broader community.
So our residencies are online right now, and that makes it a little bit challenging on the one hand, and also potentially a little more open on the other. And I will tell you that our graduation is going to include Pachakacha, which some of you may know is the fast-paced format that was developed some years back in Japan, and it's a way to tell, you've got 6 minutes and 22 seconds to tell your story, and they're very visual, and the students are going to share their research in that model. But we are really hoping to be back on campus in January, and when we are, our programs in the evenings will be at the Center for Craft, and then next July, our programs will be back on campus, and our evening programs are open to anybody to come, and we would be happy to have you join us. Some of the programs we've had close to like 50 or 60 people in the summertime come out to campus and come to some of our events in the past. So we'd love to have you as part of those conversations. I will also say that we are having a lot of conversations behind the scenes about other ways to bring some of the critical thinking that the students are doing into more conversations. So we have a newsletter for the program. Maybe we can put the chat in the chat. I can put the link to our website. And if you want more information about that, we can definitely add you to the newsletter. And when some of those things come to public readiness, then we will definitely share those with you. So stay tuned. There definitely will be ways to engage in kind of conversations about how people are documenting history and writing. And I like to call it making history, because I think that that's what we're doing too.
It's and I want to reiterate also, I know many of you are on the Conservation Exchange newsletter, and we'll be advertising a lot of opportunities through that. You know, last thing I'll say on that, I'm looking at my new mantra that's over my desk. It says when we were hiring the new garden person, we talked a lot about social issues. And my new mantra is, it's not enough for Warren Wilson to just grow food. We really need to think about, where's that food going? Who's getting it? Who's not getting it? What kinds of foods are we growing? And I think that also fits the craftscape. It's not enough for us to just do craft, right? How is that craft affecting the world? And it fits into this conversation.
Nice.
I'm going to pitch one more quick question, and I think we'll wrap it up. But Namita and Dave, how will we and how are we recognizing our land as Indigenous land in the craftscape? And along those same lines, recognizing BIPOC and their influence on our campus?
That's a great question. Do you mind if I start on this one, Dave?
Please do.
This is important to me as an American-born person of Indian heritage. My parents came here and met when they were in graduate school in Florida. So these kinds of questions are very important personally, but they're also very important to our students. And the sales of our publication from the first class and the second class are being used to build a scholarship fund for BIPOC students to support their pursuit of study in our graduate program. In terms of Indigenous histories and communities, we want to do more. We have students enrolled who are of Indigenous heritage. We definitely work on making sure that when we're on campus, the students spend a day out at Cherokee and learn with and from the different kinds of spaces that are there. We have a number of readings. We do a very careful analysis of our curriculum in advance to make sure that we are bringing in multiple perspectives too. In terms of land acknowledgements, we take the approach of customizing what needs to be said for each experience and each situation, so that it doesn't seem like, I'm sure some of you have been at events where someone reads the land acknowledgement and they say, okay, and now we're going to go have dinner. And that's disjunctive. If we're going to do it, it has to permeate everything all the way through. And so when we are together, that is something that we work on very closely with our students so that they can learn how to acknowledge that we are all immigrants on this land, and that we have to respect the people that have tended the land for many, many, many years before we all were here. So that's what we do.
Yeah, for me, I always have to remember that I'm small compared to the land. And I have to remember I'm even smaller compared to the history of the land. And that's one place that I start from. You know, if you think, it's funny when you think about this craftscape, I think about it as shuffling a deck of cards. And we're bringing together land and craft, and we're shuffling those cards, and each card is a component of the two that we're bringing together. And some components are more developed than others. When I think of how we're looking at these issues through land, a lot of it has to do with environmental studies. So land is intrinsically tied to environmental studies. And so we're working through some of those things with environmental studies. But what I've started to do is bring in speakers and talkers who have a different take on land, BIPOC folks. So last year I brought in Phil Rigdon. He's a Yakama Nation native from Washington State, who is the superintendent of the Forest Service for the Yakama Nation. And I brought him in, but what I really tried to do is I asked him not to talk about forestry from a Washington perspective. I asked him not to even so much talk about forestry. I asked him to talk about what it means to be indigenous in the natural resource profession. That's what I needed folks to hear. And then I had another one scheduled for this year, Thomas Easley, Dr. Thomas Easley, who's actually a person of color and a rapper and an artist and a forester. And he was scheduled to come in, but then he applied for our DEI position. So we kind of had to hold off until next year for him to come in. I've also worked really hard to bring Native American indigenous practices into my classes. And so when I talk in silviculture about a practice that we do now, I try to bring in an analog of how it was done historically on these lands if we have that information. And what's really funny is the students say, well, wait a minute, all we're doing is tweaking what was already done. And I said, yeah, to tell you the truth of the matter, quite often what we're doing in forestry is just tweaking things that folks have been doing for years. So it's something we think is important and we need to do better on, and I'm excited to do that.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's going to be so wonderful to see you all in person, but thank you for sharing time with us today on this webinar. Special thanks, of course, to Dave and Namita, but also to our hosts, Julie Caro, Jesse Shires, Sarah Kelly, Melanie Wilder, and Jessica White for helping us in our breakout rooms. And hang in there, stay tuned, there will be more. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Renee and Heather.
Thank you.